Have you ever met one of those people who just can't be stopped? It's like they're unstoppable.
Yeah, I have.
Me too.
What's their mystique?
Nothing stops these people.
Don't stop.
Welcome to Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso. You're about to meet some of the most amazing people.
Stop. Don't stop.
They've accomplished their goals despite insurmountable odds. They beat adversity, physical hardship, and traumatic events, and emerged triumphantly. They're people just like you and me, and they're winners. Are you unstoppable? Here's Frankie to show you how.
Hello there, and I am Frankie Picasso, your host of Mission Unstoppable Radio, and today we are going on what? Another mission, of course. Our guide is none other than sci-fi New York Times bestselling author Steve Alten, who will take us on a journey into his world. We're going to meet up with his alter ego, L.A. Knight, author of Dog Training the American Male, and get up close and personal with the mega monster, Megalodon. But first, you may want to drop some breadcrumbs along the way so we don't get lost in the nether regions of Steve's mind. I can't guarantee you'll find your way back the same way that you went in, but we'll find out soon. Welcome, Steve, to the show. How are you?
Good, Frankie. Thank you.
You know, it's interesting. When I was looking at your background, you hold a bachelor's degree from Penn State, a master's in sports medicine from the University of Delaware, and a doctorate in sports admin from Temple University. I think we should be calling you Dr. Alten. How did you end up becoming a best-selling author? Sci-fi, no less.
Well, it's interesting because back in 1995, in the summer of 95, I had picked up a Time magazine article, and on the front page was the front cover was the Mariana Trench, which is the deepest part of the ocean. It's basically 7 miles down, a 1,550-mile long unexplored gorge. And the article talked about hydrothermal vents and the fact that there was life at the bottom of the sea. And when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I read Jaws, and that spurred me on to read about great white sharks. And as I learned more about them, I learned that there was a prehistoric cousin called Megalodon, which was a 60 to 70-foot version of a great white shark. And when I read this Time magazine article in 1995, I sort of married the two ideas together and made a goal. And in setting a goal, I said that I was going to be an author. I wanted to be a best-selling author. And I was going to write this book. And so I went to the library because there was no internet back in 1995 and did some research and set the goal that I was going to write 4 pages a night until I finished the manuscript. And because I had a job at the time, a job, what I call is just over broke, I had to work on the book from 10 o'clock at night till 3 in the morning and on weekends. And that didn't make my wife very happy because I basically set up shop on the dining room table and use this old fashioned word processor. And when I finished the book, when I finished the manuscript, I didn't know how to get published. So I took out a book, publishing for dummies, how to get published.
Yeah.
And the book said that you need to get an agent. And in order to get an agent to represent you, you need to send them a 2-page query letter about your book. And so, believing in the sales philosophy that if you throw enough crap at the barn door, some of it's going to stick, I sent out 2-page query letters to everybody who handled fiction. And I heard back from only one person who wanted to represent Meg, but he said that editing a book was like cutting a fish, that you have to chop off the head, chop off the tail, and you start with the meat in the middle. And my book needed a lot of editing. And in order to work with me, he needed editing fees totaling $6,000.
Oh, yeah. Of course he did.
And but this was the only shot I had. So what I did was I sold my car, which was a 71 Chevy Malibu my dad had bought me when I was 17. And borrowed some money here and there, paid for the editing fees. And on Friday the 13th in 1996, I went to work. I was working at the time at a wholesale meat company as their general manager. And they fired me. And I went home with no job, couldn't collect unemployment because I hadn't worked there long enough. And my wife was very upset. I said, honey, this is the best thing that could happen because now I can work on my second book. And she about threw a frying pan on my head. And 6 days later, Meg went out to the 6 biggest publishing houses in the country and buoyed by the fact that we had a first look deal with Disney's Hollywood Pictures, sold for 7 figures.
Wow. I mean, Meg is a fantastic book. It really is. And I found, and you've just rewritten it. I mean, you've added and redone it, and it's incredible. And as I was reading it, I started to look up everything. I'm like, this can't be real. And I'd look it up. I go, God, that's real. Yeah. And I'd look up the next one, and I'd look up the next one. I go, he did a lot of research. And then I watched a video of you teaching, writing and telling, people, kids, whoever, I can't remember who's in the audience for this video, but, you have to research. And you're absolutely right. You do have to research. And I think it made it much more fascinating and frightening and believable that you did that. So, I was reading somewhere once that somebody said if you spend 15 minutes a day researching a topic that, in 3 years, you become a world expert. Do you feel that way about yourself?
Well, I would hate to research medicine and try to operate on somebody. But the truth of the matter is that I write faction, which is fiction and fact blurred together, so you don't know what's right. And I think it makes more fun for the reader to learn something along the way. And basically, there are times when I'll have to, process a topic that I'll research for a day or two and cut and paste 5 pages worth of information and put it in a paragraph so that it's condensed enough that the reader can read it without bogging down the story. So, but it is an important part of my books. And, the truth of the matter is that when I get an idea, the first thing I do is I flesh it out. And that requires doing the research. And, it's the real gems of the writing are in the research.
So how old were you in 95? Can I ask?
Yeah, I was 37.
Okay. So you've been married for a little while. At that point, I'm assuming. I'm saying that because I was first married in 85. I was married in 85. Yeah. So, and not that it has anything to do with anything, but I'm assuming you're still with the same wife.
Yes.
So she stuck to you. That was good.
She stuck it out against her better judgment. She stuck it out.
Yeah. So did she deploy any of those dog training techniques on you?
Well, now you're jumping around, but
I do jump around a little bit. But we have an hour. We're just going to find out all things Steve. So no worries.
Well, Dog Training the American Male is my latest novel. It's my only comedic novel, which is why I wrote it under a different pen name, which is L.A. Knight, which is to honor my father, Lawrence Alten, who was our knight in shining armor, and we lost him 5 years ago.
I'm sorry.
But my wife certainly helped inspire the book because, I actually came up with the concept after a bad argument with my wife. I couldn't understand how a simple, innocent statement I had made could be so entirely misunderstood. It was like I was speaking a different language. And
what was the statement?
I couldn't even.
I have to ask.
It was so stupid.
I'm sure she remembers.
And then, yeah, she probably does. And in the middle of the argument, my wife yells at the dog, and the dog obeys her command perfectly. And I'm, later that night when I was sleeping in the guest room, I started thinking about how did the dog get what she was saying, but I don't get it.
Uh-huh.
And I also started realizing, dogs and guys are a lot alike. When we're pups, we both love to play ball. If there's no toilet around, if we have to go to the bathroom, we have no problem with peeing on a tree. We men and dogs take pride in stupid things like our bowel movements. What guy hasn't launched a perfect torpedo and gave it a good look before flushing?
Oh, yeah.
You probably can't relate to that, but guys out there can.
No, I can't. I have to tell you, my next door neighbor came out of his house one day. He goes, I just pooed and it looks like a question mark. And he wanted everyone to come see it.
These are things that amuse guys and dogs. We're simple creatures. We think simplified. We don't mess. Women are very complex like cats, but men are simple. So I realized, well, if dogs can be trained and men are like dogs, ergo, using that commutative property we learned in math, A equals B, B equals C, then A equals C, then why can't dogs be trained? And the truth of the matter is guys prefer to be trained. And the reason is because we're very simple. We want simple things. We want to be fed. We want to have sex, and we want to lounge on the sofa on Sundays and watch football. And if you give us that, we're pretty happy. So just tell us what we got to do to get that, and we'll be trained. And that's where Dog Training the American Male came about. It's actually a novel, and the story centers around Dr. Nancy Beach, who's a relationship counselor who hosts a local radio show. So maybe you can relate to her a little bit.
I can. And I am a relationship coach, so I really could.
Well, for Nancy, all her relationships are in the toilet, so her ratings are in the toilet, and she has no credibility. And she gets set up on a blind date with a guy named Jacob Cope, who's sort of a walking thesaurus of phobias. And now, of course, he's dating a psych major, so that's not going to go well. But their brothers and sisters want to get rid of them so badly that they urge the couple to move in together after 30 days and get their own places. And when the honeymoon stage abruptly ends, Nancy's sister Lana tells Jacob, listen, if you want to make my sister happy, buy her a little white fluffy dog. It's a pet she had when she was an insecure child. And being a typical man, Jacob doesn't listen. He goes to the dog pound. And he comes home with Sam, which is a 120-pound German Shepherd. And, chaos ensues. Nancy hires a dog trainer. And when she hires the dog trainer, she realizes that, if this would work on the dog, maybe it would work on Jacob, too.
Well, let me stop you there. We're going to go to commercial break in just a moment. Karina, tell me how much time we have. But there's a couple of things I want to ask you. One, at the end of the book, there's a German Shepherd. And is he your dog, or is he a real dog?
That was my first German Shepherd, yes. That
was your first German Shepherd. What was his name?
She was named Meg.
Oh, was she? Oh, she's adorable. I have a real
actually in dog training, that would be my pup Angel, who I.
Oh yeah. Oh, very cute, very cute. And we're going to commercial break in 30 seconds. Okay, so when we come back, I want to explore a little bit deeper into this world of dog training the American male. So stay tuned, stay close, because we're going to come back. We're going to teach you how to do that if you're a woman. And if you're a guy, you might want to teach your woman how to do that so that you get more of the good stuff that Steve has been talking about. Couch, lounging, sex, all that good stuff. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after we pay the bills.
Don't stop.
That's right, don't stop listening. Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso will continue right after these messages.
Don't stop.
It's words you never heard.
I had a weird weekend relaxing and reading through Mental Floss when I came across these rip-roaring R words. I recognized a few of them, such as the old 18th century Scottish word ramfeaseld, which means fatigued or exhausted. A couple more great R words are rucketly-tucketly, meaning crumpled or gathered up and ruched. Ruched is commonly used today to describe a flattering blouse or top. Rabbity is a 16th century word for an innocent fool, while raffle-coppin is a rash, impetuous person, or maybe just somebody that gets carried away with our words.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
It's words you never heard.
Recently, I was out having dinner in a restaurant with my family when suddenly, for no apparent reason, the hostess started to lecture us about our behavior. She made us feel like real ninny hammers, even though we hadn't done anything. Nevertheless, our hostess was sanctimonious as a cockalorum. That's an old Dutch word meaning someone who crows a lot. She must have been born a smell fungus. That's a person who loves to find fault with others. I really wanted to say something, but the old adage came to mind: don't insult the alligator until after you've crossed the river. Once I went out with a group of people for sandwiches and coffee when one person said to the waiter, "Make sure my coffee is in a clean cup." When the waiter returned, he asked, "Okay, which one of you gets the clean cup?"
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my new app, Too Funny for Words.
And we're back. You're listening to Mission Unstoppable Radio. I am your host, Frankie Picasso. My guest today is Steve Alten. We're talking about his book that he wrote under the pen name of L.A. Knight, Dog Training the American Male. Steve, the book is funny, it's crude, it's rude, it's got all sorts of wonderful bits and pieces in it. The sense of humor, I think that you said that you attributed that to your dad who thought that we should all have a laugh a day. Tell us about Lawrence a little bit.
Well, he was just a wonderful human being. Just can't say enough good things about him. I know that's a short answer, but that's
it is a short answer, but okay, that's great.
I can do without losing it on live radio.
Oh, okay. It hasn't been that long since you lost your dad. I'm sorry. In the book, Jacob Cope, he lost his job. He decided to become a ventriloquist, and I guess, as many ventriloquists do, is able to speak his feelings and thoughts only through that wooden dummy. And he decides to try his hand at that. He's got two cougars who are after him in the book. They're pretty funny. Who did you base these characters after?
Just some interesting people. In fact, the two dog trainers in the book, one's a woman who starts off training the dog and by extension Jacob by doing simple tricks with simple rewards. We actually had a dog trainer just like her, and she taught my first German Shepherd, Meg, tricks. But then when we realized that really wasn't enough, we hired a former police dog trainer, and he used a whole different set of principles. And that's what happens with Nancy. She uses in the book, she hires a former police dog trainer, and he comes in with a whole set of things that include conditioning and ball training and utilizing the leash and dealing with separation anxiety, breeding rituals and toys and accessories and neutering, and he eventually works up to the shock collar, and Nancy eventually works up to the shock collar with Jacob too.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. She created this shock collar, and these ladies, I guess one of her colleagues at the radio station got a hold of it and decided to try it for herself. The nursing home was kind of funny. The idea of Jacob's mom. Jacob had a brother who's a gynecologist. I can't remember his name in the book right now, but she. He's quite the character. But their mother, oh my gosh, like who is she based on?
She's based on every Jewish mother that's out there.
Oh, okay.
she's quite controlling.
Very controlling. Very, calls all the girlfriends and the wives just, your whores and things like that, which is, I don't think I've ever seen a booby do that, but it was very funny actually. And there's an older gentleman in the nursing home who really liked her, and he's the father of the woman who owns the radio station that Nancy worked at. And Nancy's the host, the relationship expert who couldn't get a boyfriend. So now she's got Jacob, and she's living with Jacob. And they're trying to set the mother up with this guy, and she wouldn't have anything to do with him. So you decide to give him a circumcision at like 90 in hopes that this Jewish mama.
They know that the rich guy who's in the seniors home has a crush on Jacob's mother, and Jacob's mother wants nothing to do with the guy, but she does date, and so they try to do a little detective work and find out what her previous dates who died on her had in common, and they decided that they were all circumcised. So they insisted this guy get circumcised in order to date Jacob's mother, and that leads to some bizarre complications.
So after reading this book, I have to ask, who are you more like? Are you more? Are you more like who do you represent in these books?
I represent the conscience of every red-blooded American who just wants to get laid occasionally and watch football games.
Watch football.
and eat well and not fight with their wives. Of course we do, because we speak different languages. And I mentioned my wife. I love her dearly. But, the other day I got into an argument with her because I had mentioned the statement that I guess I had said 18 years ago also, and I guess she did her women have a built-in Google search in their brains that can instantly locate a similar phrase. And I found, how do you defend yourself as a guy from a statement you made 18 years ago? I mean, there's got to be a statute of limitations on what a spouse can bring up in an argument. But my wife was bringing it up, and here we go.
Wow. Well, yeah, 18. You guys have been married how long now?
Almost 25 years.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
You've managed to figure out how to get through arguments and stay together.
Not at all.
Not at all? Are you on the couch still?
I need to be trained intensely. I need intense dog training.
Intense dog training. I guess intense dog training means you get intense sex. No? Okay.
I need the reward behavior training where if I perform, then I get my reward, and then I'm a happy camper. That's
great. There's a caller on the radio show. She calls in. She's one of the female dog trainers. She says, Nancy, she goes, do you know what the difference between dog training a dog and a man is? And she says, no. She goes, it's the treat.
Exactly.
So in the trailer, the treat is Nancy stripping down and in her sexy lingerie, and Jacob sitting there doing dishes and shoveling snow and just doing everything that we want our guys to do, taking out the garbage for treats. But he kind of catches on. He kind of catches on to this, and does he care?
Well, what catches on is Jacob smiling all the time, and his older brother Vinny notices it at a Little League game, and he said, what's going on with you? And he says, well, things have been great at home. We're having sex on a regular basis, and the other day when I was doing the laundry, and his brother says, well, what do you mean you were doing the laundry? Oh yeah, I was doing the laundry, and we had sex, and then Vinny puts a stop to that right away. He doesn't want his brother being turned into a Stepford husband.
Yeah.
And that's when things go to hell.
What have you heard from couples who've read the book, or have you heard from couples who've read the book?
Well, if you go on Amazon, where the book, one of the places Dog Training American Male is being sold, there's a lot of reviews, and most of them are from women, and the women really like the book.
Yeah, I think there's like 43 reviews on Amazon. I think that's awesome. No, I was just wondering if you could relay any of that to the listeners, or have you had any personal friends of you and your wives, say anything to you as a husband and wife together?
Well, just the fact that women really like the book, and but I wrote it for guys. That's the funny part. I wrote it for guys to give to the women, and the women would hopefully train the guy, and the guy would be happy. So it's
So it's like, here, honey, take this book and train me.
It's like a Trojan horse of a book for guys to get along with their wives and girlfriends.
I know that you started to mention this at the beginning of the book, and we talked a little bit about this. But ladies, this is how it kind of comes off. It says, have you caught your man peeing on a tree? Has he looked at his bowel movements? Has he tried to dry hump your leg? Has he dragged mud in your house? Does he spend a lot of time sleeping on the couch or sniffed your panties? If you can say yes to 4 or more of these, he needs this book. You need to dog train your man. And I just wondering, Karina, you're young and single, and what would you say to having a book like this? Would you dog train your man?
I think it would be interesting to read and just to, see how that what's in the book is kind of portrayed in real life a little bit. So yeah, I probably would.
Okay. The one thing that I do really love about this book, aside from the story, because it is a very funny book, and I think everybody should read it, and it should be on your Christmas list, if not in your stocking. But is the fact that proceeds do go to a really good cause, and I'm sure it's just a percentage of proceeds, but they go to Paws for Liberty, and it's one of the few nonprofit organizations that in Florida whose primary focus is serving post 9/11 veterans with PTSD. And I think that's pretty wonderful. They say that it takes about $15,000 to train a dog to help a vet, and just, any money that you can give towards this cause helps to do that. And so it's absolutely worthwhile. But I love that you chose that. Do you know somebody that has a service dog from there?
Well, yeah, we're actually familiar with the woman who runs the organization, and she's a great lady, and they do terrific work there. And so we're proud to be associated with it.
Nice. How big is it?
They've got a small facility down here in South Florida, and they raise the dogs and train them for the vets, and they've been doing it for years. And,
do you know how many dogs have been given out so far?
I don't know, to be honest. But,
yeah, that's okay.
You can email them and find out.
Sure. I mean, I love the idea, and I love to have nonprofits on my other radio show. We like to help them and get their names out there for everybody. And I especially have a deep love for animals, and especially dogs. So Karina knows I do a lot of shows on dogs. But German Shepherds are like so close to. That was my very first dog too, and I'm like in love with them. I'm obsessed with them, even though I own a golden retriever. That was my husband. You get the small fluffy dog. I get the golden retriever instead of the German Shepherd, but it's a dog, and I can't complain because he chose it. It's one that you could live with, I guess. So that's always a good thing. What kind of dogs did your wife like?
Well, we have a Havanese, a little white floofy for her, and German Shepherd for me, and so the story takes after our breeds to a certain extent.
Yeah. Well, do you think it's as a writer, it's always good to write what you know about?
I think my advice on that is to write about what you like to read, and then do the research and become an expert on it. It helps if you know about it, but I think it's better to write a book that you would prefer to read. And this is something that I wrote because I needed a little humor in my life at the time, and because of just the situations in my own household that my dog understood my wife better than I understood my wife. So.
Well, we're off to a commercial. We'll be right back with Steve Alten.
That's right.
Don't go
stop
anywhere.
Listening. Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso will continue right after these messages.
Stop.
It's words you never heard.
Here are some tips from the popular UK internet site BuzzFeed to help make your life a little more fun. Next time you catch a cold, try adding a touch of magic by holding a handful of glitter in front of your mouth just before you sneeze. By the way, here's a word coined by a Canadian disc jockey for that feeling you get just before you sneeze. Anticipation. Hey, slang is just language with its sleeves rolled up. The actual medical term for sneezing is sternutation. Here's a suggestion from one techspert for making a cell phone last longer. You can double the battery life of your cell phone by simply putting the darn thing down. Well, that's plain old rumble gumption, which is another word for common sense.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
A study from the Center of Science in the Public Interest reviewed the nutritional contents of movie theater popcorn and found an alarming amount of fat, salt, and calories. A typical large tub of popcorn has 1,200 calories, 980 milligrams of sodium, and 60 grams of saturated fat. Adding just 1 tablespoon of butter adds 130 calories. Even the small delivers 670 calories, 550 milligrams of sodium, and 24 grams of saturated fat. Movie theater popcorn is often popped in coconut oil, which is about 90% saturated fat. Add salt to the enormous portions, and your once healthy snack turns into a health offender. Next time you go to the movies, bring your own air-popped popcorn and enjoy the show. For the Fitness Minute, I'm Annette Hammond, keeping you healthy, happy, and fit.
And we're back. How are you? Thanks for sticking around. When we went to break, we were just talking about the kind of dogs that Steve has in his household, and if it's easier to write about what you know. And Steve had mentioned that he needed a bit of humor in his life, and so he wrote this book. It's very different from the other books that you've written. So, do you have another humorous book on the horizon?
I've got a couple ideas for them, but. I've got a couple. I get to write another Meg book, which will probably be the last Meg book before the movie comes out in 2018.
Which is very exciting. I see that Jason Statham is supposed to be the lead, and Lily Bing is supposed to be his. I guess it's Terry Tanaka. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's got, there's really an all-star international cast in Meg, and for your listeners, Meg is short for Carcharodon megalodon, which was the 60-foot prehistoric cousin of the great white shark that dominated the oceans for about 30 million years and only disappeared rather recently, which means that they could still be out there. And in the movie, in the book, Meg is the species is inhabiting the Mariana Trench and living in the comfort of the warm hydrothermal vented waters down there, and the hero of the story, Jonas Taylor, had run into them 7 years earlier on a secret naval dive, and when he rushed to the surface in the submersible, 2 people were killed on board, and he was given a dishonorable discharge by the Navy and sort of diagnosed as having psychosis of the deep, and he's trying to prove to the rest of the world that Megalodon is still alive. So the opportunity comes along that he gets to make another dive down there to collect a white tooth, which would prove that these creatures are still alive, and instead of the tooth, he gets the whole creature.
Now you wrote the first time you wrote Meg was it in the 70s?
No. I wrote Meg in 1995, 96.
Oh, 95. And then you just revisited it and rewrote it or added to it.
The 20th anniversary was coming up, and the movie was coming up, and I really wanted to get back in there and just do a rewrite, because I had written the book 20 years ago, and I've evolved a lot as an author. Mm-hmm. And I just felt, it needed to be brought up to date, and I wanted to add a few scenes, and I wanted to add an unpublished prequel called Meg Origins to it. And when I added the prequel, I realized that the writing didn't match, because the prequel was new and the writing was 20 years old. So I just ended up taking 4 months and rewriting the entire book, and we put 17 never-before-seen graphic images in the text and new cover. And it's just worked out really well.
It is such a good book. And I was trying to figure out how many are in the series and how because I was on your website and I was on Amazon, and it was just a little bit unclear to me. And because I think you allow readers to read some stuff. And so can you just explain to us what comes after Meg? If I'm just going to spit this out.
There's 5 sequels: Meg the Trench, and then Meg Primal Waters, Meg Hell's Aquarium, and the new one that just came out in hardback called Meg Night Stalkers, which came out this summer. And then there'll be one other one, Meg Generations, which I haven't started writing yet, and that will be timed for the release of the movie. And
then you have other books that you've written too, besides the dog training.
Yes.
And what are those also sci-fi?
Most of them are thrillers. I have a domain series about the Mayan calendar's Doomsday Prophecy.
Oh, cool.
And the 3 books in that series are called Domain, Resurrection, and Phobias. And then a standalone Goliath about some submarine shaped like a giant stingray that its brain, the brain wired into the computer comes alive, and there's a book called The Omega Project that came out a few years ago that is about a scientist who goes on a 30-day cryogenic experiment, wakes up 12 million years later in the future.
Oh, wow.
And The Shell Game is about the end of oil and the next 9/11 event. And I'm working on a book right now with that really tells the story of Dr. Stephen Greer, the foremost authority on UFOs and extraterrestrials.
Very cool. That's, I said we're going to take a trip into your mind, and wow, what a mind it is. I was watching a series where you're helping, writers talking about where ideas come from. How do you come up with an idea for a book? They come from everywhere and anywhere, I would imagine. But you just have to be interested, I think. And one of the things that you have done, which I think is very interesting, is your Adopt an Author program. And I know that Meg has specifically has been used in schools to get children to read. It's like people who never read before will read this and go, I was watching YouTube videos of them going, yeah, I never read a book, but I just read this and I love it and I want to read the next one. So kudos to you for that. Tell us about the Adopt an Author, how that works.
Well, the program started back in 1999, 1998, shortly after Meg had come out. And I started getting inundated with emails from teenagers who hated to read, but they were all telling me they love reading Meg. And I hadn't written the book for young adults. It's an adult book, but, giant shark stories are...
Sure.
You don't have to be young or old to enjoy them. You can be any age. And then I started getting email from teachers in high school who were telling me they were using the book in their curriculum. And that kind of surprised me. And then I found out that Meg had been named the #1 book for reluctant readers by the Young Adult Library Services Association.
Wow.
And I realized something important was happening, and I needed to become involved because my background is actually in education. I have a master's, bachelor, and doctorate in education, and I'm certified to teach in school. So we created the Adopt an Author program, which is basically a nonprofit. And it's in Canada and the United States. And basically, we created curriculum materials for teachers to make it easy for them to add to their own curriculum. Mm-hmm. And they get a choice of tests, quizzes, projects. We send them classroom posters. And we had one other, cherry on top, which is we encourage students to contact the authors, myself and a few other authors, by Skype or personal visits or in classroom conference calls or email. And we went from, I think we had 8 teachers in 1999 when the program first started, and we've now registered over 10,000 high school teachers to the program.
Wow, that's awesome.
And
I think that's so great.
It's free, and it really does get students to read because of the books that are in the program. I was shocked when I first started checking into it and found out that the teachers were reading the same books in class that they had when I was a student way back when.
Yeah.
Wuthering Heights, The Scarlet Letter.
Yeah, really old stuff that doesn't...
Yeah, it's like watching paint dry. So if you read a book that's fun, that's the secret to get students to read or anybody to read. Make it a fun read.
I know that my own boys, I've got boys and girls, but my own kids, they really, the boys especially, always like science books. They like stuff that was real or true. They would read those kind of, factual kinds of books. And girls, they like, I think girls kind of tend to like fiction. But they would have loved Meg back then. I think the only book one of my kids ever read was the Harry Potter series. And, interestingly enough, I couldn't even get through it. I tried to read it and I couldn't. So, and I read like 5 books a week because I got all these authors that I interview, and it's crazy. But I read everything, and I love it. And as an author myself, I think I have to respect them by reading their books. But this is an incredible program, and just wonderful that the kids just loved your book so much. You got them hooked, like you said in your series. You have to hook them in the first chapter. They'll come along for the ride for a couple of chapters after that. But if you don't hook them in the beginning, game over. Exactly. So what advice do you have for writers? How do you hook? How do you do that?
Well, first come up with a subject that is something that you would want to read yourself. If you don't want to read it yourself, then why would anybody else?
Yeah.
And then do the research, and then create a beat sheet, which is basically sort of the beats of the story. And then when you start writing, keep in mind that, that first chapter's got to grab them.
I think in 2 weeks, I have another author coming on, somebody that you helped, Marie Sutro.
Oh.
And she got a great book, and I love it. I'm in the middle of it, but she hooked me right from the beginning. And she gives you credit for her writing and for really making it a good book, which I think is very sweet. How did you help?
Well, I had a program called Writing Coach, which is I'll take on an author if I like what they're writing and sort of be a mentor to them and help them create the story. And I edit the first chapter with them. They'll send me a chapter and I'll edit it. And it's a paid-for program, but Marie was one of my students, and she wrote a great book. And I think she could become the next Thomas Harris. I'm very proud of her, and I'm so glad you're having her on your show.
She's a really good writer, really good.
And she's a good person, too.
And I know that you said that, I think saw it somewhere, that you helped like 15 authors and 8 of them are published. That's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, I think it's more like 25, but
Well, it's probably an old video.
Yeah, we've got 8 that have been published, and there's still some that are writing. So, I'm very proud of them.
That's incredible. Really amazing. Good for you. Well, we're coming up, got a minute to a commercial break, but let's tell folks how they can get a hold of you, your website, your books. Is it stevealten.com? Is that the best place to go?
stevealten.com has excerpts from all my books and images and where you can get them. And Dog Training the American Male is my comedy, and that's written under the pen name L.A. Knight, Knight. And that's in stores, just getting in the stores, and it's on Amazon.
And Alten is Alten, not O-N. And so just go to his website, and you can find you can actually get autographed posters, Meg posters. So that's kind of fun if you got some kids who love sharks. You might want to go on there and check that out for a good stocking stuffer or gift. Have it framed. We're off to our commercial. We'll talk about that when we come back, Steve. We're just going to a commercial break, but don't go anywhere. Stay tuned and stay close, and we will be right back.
Right, don't stop listening. Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso will continue right after these messages.
Stop.
Secret Cuisines and Sacred Rituals is a quest, a place, and a feast. Join host Vilasi Venkatachalam every week to explore myths, mystique, old medicine, and brilliant modern solutions through a dazzling kaleidoscope of cuisines, cultures, and cures. This is the place where tribes gather, strangers and familiars, to be memory keepers and makers of our evolving, enduring, evergreen, spoken legacy of wisdom and ingenuity. In Velasi's words, when we do old things in new ways and new things in old ways, we paint with an inspired palette, weave our own healing traditions, and become our own guru. Vilasi is a troubadour of secret cuisines and sacred rituals. She collects stories of wisdom, ingenuity, and grit. She believes wellness and transformation happen when you stand at the threshold of delight and discovery. She displays her hidden penchant for drama when she leads the Safari at the Supper Club. Her favorite pastime is to extol the marvels of cuisines, cultures, and cures. To her audience in workplaces, seminars, and salons, her mantra is, be your own guru. She is a biochemist, botanist, and alchemist who likes to churn delightful, useful things from a brew of art and science, ancient and evolving, old medicine, and new cures. Join Vilasi every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, only here on the Woohoo Radio Network.
Reaching out from the heartland of the United States with quality programming, this is TogiNet Radio.
It's words you never heard.
Did you hear about the Gaberlunzie bear caught rummaging through a refrigerator in an apartment in Colorado? The tenant heard noises coming from the kitchen and saw a bear with his head in the fridge, looking for anything it could eat. What's a word for food that's unfit for human consumption? Ma wallop. The tenant locked himself in his bedroom and called for help. What's a word for the fear of bears? Ursophobia. We have lots of bears near our Colorado cabin, and we have been told that pepper spray will keep them away. But the idea that it would keep a 500-pound grizzly bear from attacking seems ridiculous to me. I think I'll try the pepper spray on myself and hope the bear doesn't like spicy foods.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
Well, I hope you dropped those breadcrumbs along the way, because we're going to be heading back home shortly. But we're still here with author Steve Alten. And again, I am your host, Frankie Picasso. You're listening to Mission Unstoppable Radio, and I'm so glad that you are. We both are. Before we went to break, we were talking about some of the things that you can get off of his website, and two very important items that we want to mention is that if you are going to be buying Dog Training for the American Male, buy the yellow copy. It's important because that's the book where the money gets to go to the vets. So make sure that you look for the yellow copy. And it's the 25th anniversary for Meg, and there are 1,800 hard copy books left, signed editions that you can purchase. And that money goes to help the Adopt an Author program. So Steve would be very happy and proud if you could go and do those two things. Do them together. Why not? They're both great books, and you won't be sorry. I can guarantee you they're both great reads. I totally enjoyed my time within those covers. So make sure you get them and put them on your Christmas shopping list. You won't be sorry. How do they get a hold of is the edition just through your website, Steve, the hard copy?
Yeah, Frankie. It's interesting because Meg came out 20 years ago in hardback by Bantam Doubleday, and they printed 175,000 and sold them all, the first editions.
Nice.
So when we found out the movie was being made by Warner Brothers, we printed 5,000 all new edited 20th anniversary hardbacks, and we only printed 5,000, and we refused to sell them in the store. We're only selling them on the website so that it benefits the Adopt an Author program. And back in February, I flew into the warehouse that had the remaining 1,800 copies and signed every one of them.
Nice.
And they're all numbered, so they're numbered in sequence. So as you buy them, that's it. There won't be any more printed.
And how much are they?
They're $24.99.
Oh, that's not bad.
No, they're actually cheaper than when the original book came out. And they've got the never published before prequel in there, and the 17 images, and they're all signed and numbered.
That's fantastic. If you are an owner of the original, how great would it be to have this anniversary copy in your library? You can really show off. Go, look, I knew him when, and I know him now. That's pretty cool. I love that.
Yeah, and they're selling for eBay for about 3 times the amount, so you can still grab a first edition 20th anniversary special from stevealten.com.
I love it. And I'm going to go buy my own copy because I got to support authors. I think it's great. And I wish, I had a book to put in your Adopt an Author program, which I do have 3, but a little beyond the kids, I think. But that would be wonderful. I think it's a great, great thing to do. And I love to help people read. There's nothing more inspiring than that, because reading has definitely changed my life. And I know that, you can learn anything. You can learn anything in a book and get inspired and all kinds of stuff. Now, I'm going to bring up something, and it's probably little known, I don't know, but it was given to me to know, and that's that you have Parkinson's disease. So I just wonder, how has that changed your life, and how long have you known about it?
Well, I was diagnosed 10 years ago, and the first sign was that when I was in bed, my toes were cramping terribly, and then I was getting a little bit of a twitch in my right hand, and I went to the doctor, and he said, well, it looks like you have the onset of Parkinson's.
Oh.
And, I made a decision how I was going to fight the disease, because the problem with the medicine is that it can cause the symptoms.
Oh.
And the longer that you're on the medication, the more you need it. And so your brain becomes sort of addicted to it. And so I pushed off taking the medicine for 7 years, and finally, things took a turn for the worse a couple summers ago. And I started the medication, and I was fortunate enough to find a biochemist who makes an extract that sort of duplicates what the medicine does, only it has no...
In natural form?
In natural form. It's made from vegetables and fruit extracts. And so I keep my dosage of medicine very minimal, and I use the extract. And fortunately, I've been lucky enough to combat the disease as best I can. But it's a degenerative disease. It's not easy to live with, and unfortunately, from the moment I wake up in the morning to the moment I go to sleep, I have to cope with it, as do other patients like it.
Sure. And that's what Mission Unstoppable is all about. We kind of started off with, you're unstoppable, and even though you have a disease and it's you're at the onset of the disease and it's going to grow, it hasn't stopped you. You're still doing what you love. You're still doing what you want. You're still thinking about the future, and that's all you can ask from people is to, not stop. Just keep going.
Yeah, and it's tough for people who don't have the disease to understand. I have one of my best friends has MS, and we talk all the time, and it's something that these things are not easy to live with. It is challenging, but you always have to keep a perspective that there's always people who have it a lot worse than you do.
Absolutely.
So you just have to be thankful for what you do have.
Yep. I think one of the first shows I had was a mountain climber who lost all his fingers, his toes, and his nose, and he still climbs. And to me, it was like, how do you still do that? But it's passion. And I guess, you're still in the game, and kudos to you, Steve, for finding a way to do it that's right for you. It works for you. You found a biochemist, and I think or a compound, pharmacist, I guess. And I think that's great. I think we all need to take that kind of care for ourselves and not just, give in to what our doctors want us to do, but do what's right for us too, because you still want to do things in your life. So, yay. I think it's great. Well, we got to, I'm going to encourage everybody to please dog train your man. Get that book, Dog Train Your Man. Healthy American males, they like their football, they like to lay on a couch, they like to be lazy, and they sure like their sex, and they like good food. So if you want to dog train your man, it's not that hard. Not that hard at all. Get them to do what you want, and everybody's a happy camper. Everybody. You're going to speak the same language. It's all energy. Dog training is about energy. So give that good energy, and you'll get some good energy back. And I guarantee you'll have a lot of good laughs along the way if you read that book. So make sure you put it into your stocking this Christmas. And Meg, oh my gosh, what a fantastic book. Like I said at the very beginning, I was reading the book, and I go, I have to look that up. I was looking up so much stuff, I was becoming a researcher. But I loved that it was based in real science and real research, and it makes a fantastic book. Are you still helping authors? Like if somebody wanted to reach out to you, if they had a premise or a book, or are you still helping them?
Yeah, they can contact me through stevealten.com, or if they read Dog Training the American Male by L.A. Knight, my email address is there. They can get to me through Dog Training the American Male as well. Okay. And I'm assuming you charge for this? I do charge, but I don't take many clients on. And it's for the serious writer. Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure. What don't we know about Steve Alten? Oh, I found out backstage he does have children, in case you were wondering. He's got 4 kids, 2 stepkids, and so we know that you have kids, and we know that you've been married for a long time. Pardon me? And 3 granddaughters. 3 granddaughters. How old? 13, 6, and a newborn who was born only 1 pound. Oh, wow. She's out of the hospital now, and she's a healthy 7 pounds, and Alejandro. That's wonderful. When was she born? She was born, I believe, back in September. Oh, good for her. Oh, I'm so happy for you. I just had a grandchild born last week, too.
So we got 4 now too. Yeah, it's wonderful to see these kids, your kids have kids and your family grow, and it's really nice, especially, with the Thanksgiving coming up. I do want to make sure I wish all my American friends a happy Thanksgiving, happy, safe Thanksgiving this coming Thursday, and remember those that don't have anything and share. So hopefully you guys will do that too. Steve, it's been great. It's been great meeting you and talking to you and reading all your books, and I can't wait to read more of your books. I am so excited about the movie coming out 2018, you say. John Turteltaub, who was the National Treasury movie director, is scheduled to be the director for this, and with Warner Brothers, and it's going to be a fantastic movie. Jason Statham, interesting that they would choose him for this role. Do you have any say in any of this, or?
I have a little say, but mostly I trust my producer, Bella Avery, and there's a lot of other great producers attached to it. And I think Jason Statham was an inspired choice. I think he's got the right mix of physicality and
well, he's got the cojones, that's for sure.
Got the cojones, and he's probably met his match in the 70-foot prehistoric great white, but I don't think he'll be able to karate kick the shark, but we'll see if he survives.
Now, they moved the location from the Pacific to China. That's interesting.
Yeah, what happened was is that the book had been optioned for a movie twice. Uh-huh. Once by Disney's Hollywood Pictures and once by New Line Cinema, but there were both incidences that the scripts weren't right, and so the rights reverted back to me, and this time I optioned it to Bella Avery, the producer, and she raised the money from Chinese producers, and so we wanted to switch instead of having the scenes take place in the Japanese Pacific Ocean to the Chinese area.
Well, I want to wish you all the best. Good luck on this anniversary. Good luck on the movie. Go to Steve Alten with an ALTEN.com to learn more. Get the anniversary book. Get the Train Your Man book. And Steve Alten, thank you so much for being our guest today. It was really a pleasure getting to know you.
Thank you, Frankie. I appreciate it.
And Karina, thanks for producing the show today. And I want to wish you and everybody at the station a happy Thanksgiving. Take care, everybody. See you next week. Or the week after next. Bye now.
Don't stop.
When the chips were down, they didn't stop. Stories of people who, when the odds were against them, turned defeat into victory. You've been listening to Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso. See you next time, and always remember...
Don't stop.